When I think of the Feast of St. Peter and Paul, I immediately think of a church in Rome in the Piazza del Popolo, Santa Maria del Popolo, in which in one of the chapels, opposite one another on the walls, are two pictures by the great painter Caravaggio. One is the crucifixion of St. Peter, and the other is the conversion of St. Paul. The last time I saw the pictures, I realised something I hadn't noticed before, that although St. Peter has been crucified upside down in the traditional way and he's being nailed to the cross, St. Paul is lying on the ground, having been thrown there by his experience on the way to Damascus, and is holding out his arms very much as though in the position of one being crucified. And Paul himself talks often in his letters about a sense of being crucified with Christ. And here seems to be the experience of the crucified Lord at the moment of his conversion. Paul and Peter on opposite walls together in a Rome where tradition has it they were both martyred during the persecution of Nero. But things weren't always perfect with the two saints. If we read the letter of Paul to the Galatians, he tells of an incident in Antioch where Peter refused to eat with the Gentiles when people from James came down from Jerusalem and were sort of monitoring what was going on between Peter and Paul and the new people coming into the church. Paul, in his usual way, called Peter a hypocrite and challenged him to his face, as he says, about his behaviour. But in the end, of course, their missionary activity took them to Rome in different sort of directions, because Peter, as we hear from Galatians, had a responsibility for the Jewish people who were outside Judea, of the Roman province of Syria, whereas Paul was responsible for the non-Jews, the Gentiles, as part of his missionary activity. And we hear them together from time to time in the Pauline letters in Corinth, and we hear about their death in the tradition in Rome during the persecution of Nero. Another interesting church in Rome, relevant I think to today's feast, is the Dominican Church of Santa Sabina. And in that church there are two wonderful mosaics of the Church of the Circumcision and the Church from the Gentiles. And there we have two mature women holding books towards the audience, pointing at the texts which are important for the identity of Christ as the one who is to come and the one who has brought these people together. One of the interesting things about these mosaics is that the woman who represents the synagogue, the church of the circumcision, is not blindfolded as she often is in the later representations, but she stands there looking clearly at us, pointing to the sacred page that is the text that she wants to bring to our attention about Jesus. The church from the circumcision, the church from the Gentiles, these are the two churches fostered and nourished by Peter and Paul, and are the start of the presentation of the building of the church today.